The hangar lights buzzed faintly against the hum of the base generators, casting long shadows across the polished concrete. Outside, the desert wind swept fine dust through the open bay doors, swirling around rows of aircraft that gleamed like sleeping predators under the morning sun. The promotion ceremony was supposed to be routine. A handful of ribbons, a few handshakes, maybe a salute or two. But that morning at Miramar, there was a strange tension in the air, a quiet murmur among the flight crews that something, or rather, someone, was different. At the center of it all stood Captain Raina Cole, calm, focused, and impossibly composed. She wore her dress blues like armor, neat, unflinching, precise. Her brown hair was pinned tight beneath her cover, and the faint scar along her jaw caught the light when she turned. The Marine colonel in charge of the ceremony, Col. Nathan Briggs, flipped through his clipboard, frowning slightly. "Captain Cole, you're the last one for today," he said. "Your record says you're transferring from Edwards. Test pilot." Raina nodded once. "Yes, sir." He scanned her file again. Impressive flight hours. Quiet service record. No disciplinary marks. But, he squinted. "This section here, your previous command lists you under Special Operations Liaison, Squadron Phantom. That squadron doesn't exist." A ripple of uneasy laughter went through the officers nearby. Raina didn't respond. Briggs looked up. "So what's your call sign, Captain?" She hesitated for the briefest moment, the kind of pause that felt like the air itself held its breath. "Phantom 7, sir." The room fell silent. Briggs's expression shifted. The faintest hint of recognition flashed behind his eyes. Shock, disbelief, and something else. For a moment, the colonel's hand, still holding the clipboard, trembled. He set it down slowly, almost reverently, as if the paper had become something fragile and heavy. "Excuse me," he said quietly. Raina met his gaze evenly. "Phantom 7, that's my call sign." Someone in the back whispered, "That can't be right. Phantom Squadron was lost." Briggs swallowed hard. His jaw tightened. "Captain Cole," he said, voice low, "where did you hear that name?" Raina didn't flinch. "I didn't hear it, sir. I earned it." The colonel called for a brief recess, but no one moved. The air inside the hangar grew thick with tension. The other officers exchanged glances, whispering to each other. Briggs motioned her toward the back office. The door shut behind them with a heavy click. He turned. "You're telling me you're part of Phantom Squadron?" "Yes, sir." "Impossible. Phantom Squadron was declared Kia over Kandahar 12 years ago." Raina's voice was quiet. "Most of them were." Briggs stared at her, unable to speak. He'd been a young major back then. He remembered the name Phantom Squadron, an experimental flight team, off the books, made up of the best pilots from every branch. They were ghosts in the sky, unseen, untraceable, unacknowledged. Their final mission had gone dark after a classified strike deep behind enemy lines. The reports were sealed, the survivors presumed dead. But standing in front of him was a woman wearing the insignia of a line officer, calm as still water, claiming to be one of them. "Why now?" Briggs asked finally. "Why come forward after all these years?" Raina's eyes softened. "Because one of ours didn't make it home until last week, sir." Briggs froze. "One of yours?" "Lieutenant Kyle Mercer. Phantom 4. He felt the breath leave his chest. He remembered that name. A Navy pilot, decorated, presumed killed in action. "He was found by a recon team," Raina continued quietly. "He'd been held in a mountain compound all this time. When they pulled him out, he was half conscious, asking for me by call sign." Briggs sat down slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. "You were on that mission?" "Yes, sir. I was flying lead. 12 years earlier. Kandahar province. The night was black as ink, the desert below burning in patches of orange and red. Their mission was surgical, a deep strike against a high-value target moving under cover of darkness. The coordinates changed last minute, intel blurred, but Phantom Squadron didn't question. They were the kind of pilots who flew on instinct and trust. But something went wrong. The ambush came from the sky itself. Surface-to-air missiles sliced through the dark, and the radio went dead in a roar of static. Phantom 6 hit. Going down. Mayday. Mayday. Raina's own jet took shrapnel through the left wing. Fire tore across the fuselage. She could barely hear her own voice over the alarms. All phantoms, bail out. Repeat. Bail. Then, an explosion. White light. Silence. When she came to, the world was upside down. The desert stretched endless and cruel around her. The wreckage burned in the distance. Phantom 4's chute never deployed. Phantom 3's beacon went silent. She searched for them for days, with a broken rib, a half-functional radio, and one final distress beacon. By the time a dust-off bird found her, the others were gone. Officially, Phantom Squadron died that week. Unofficially, one survived. Back in the present, Raina sat across from the colonel, her posture straight, hands folded in her lap. Briggs's voice was softer now. You've been flying under a false unit all this time. Yes, sir. Orders from above. Black file clearance. My role was reassigned under test division. He looked down at her record again, the one that seemed too ordinary for someone who'd survived what she had. And Lieutenant Mercer. The one they found. Raina's composure faltered for the first time. Her voice caught. He remembered everything, sir. He told them I'd pulled him out of the wreck, dragged him 6 miles to extraction, then disappeared. Briggs leaned back, stunned. You saved him. She shook her head. He saved me. He refused to let go when I blacked out. Said I had a duty to come home. Said Phantom 7 wasn't finished. Briggs took a long breath. He understood now why she'd come. This wasn't just a transfer. It was closure. The next morning, the base gathered again for the ceremony. The atmosphere was different, quiet, respectful. Colonel Briggs stepped forward. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge someone whose service record doesn't tell the full story. He looked toward Raina. Some of you know her as Captain Cole. A test pilot, a quiet professional, but what most of you don't know, is that she's one of the last of Phantom Squadron. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Briggs continued, voice steady. 12 years ago, Phantom Squadron vanished behind enemy lines. Their mission remained classified, their sacrifice buried in silence. But today, one of them stands here, not to be recognized for medals or missions, but for something far greater, courage that endured even after the world stopped looking. He turned toward her. Captain Cole, Phantom 7. Raina stood tall. She saluted sharply, her eyes glinting with something between sorrow and pride. At the back of the hangar, a wheelchair creaked forward. The crowd parted in silence as Lieutenant Kyle Mercer, pale, thin, but smiling, was rolled in by 2 corpsmen. His flight jacket hung loose around his shoulders, the Phantom insignia still faintly visible. The room went still. He raised his trembling hand in salute. Permission to speak, sir. Briggs nodded, voice thick. Granted. Mercer turned toward the officers, his voice rough, but steady. When they pulled me out of that hellhole, I thought I was the last. But she, he pointed toward Raina, she was the reason I survived. They call her Phantom 7 because she was the one who never gave up on the rest of us. She carried me when I couldn't walk. She fought off enemy patrols with a busted sidearm. She refused evac until they had a confirmed count of every fallen pilot. The hangar was silent except for the sound of his breath. You don't know who she is, he said, looking around the room. She's the reason any of us ever made it home. The ceremony paused as men and women stood, one after another, until the entire hangar was on its feet. The sound of salutes snapped like rifle fire. Raina's eyes glistened. She stepped forward, kneeling beside Mercer's chair. He smiled weakly. Told you, Phantom 7 never dies. Neither do you, 4, she whispered. Later that night, when the hangar was empty and the stars spread endless above the desert, Raina walked to the far end of the tarmac. She carried a small metal tag in her palm, 7 names engraved in worn letters. She knelt beside the runway lights and set it down gently. Rest easy, Phantoms, she murmured. We made it home. A faint hum echoed overhead, the low growl of an F-35 taking off under moonlight. The wind carried the sound across the desert, fading into the night like a whisper of ghosts. And for the first time in 12 years, Phantom 7 smiled.